He is the part owner and chief marketing officer of Courts of the World. We now welcome Ryan O'Leary onto Hoopsology. How's it going, Ryan?
Hey, Justin, how you doing?
Good. This is an interview I've been looking forward to conducting with you, Ryan, just because your site deals with basketball courts all over the world. But before we hop into the website, I wanted to just ask you, when did you first fell in love with the game of basketball?
Yeah, it's funny, Justin. I think I'm a late bloomer to really falling in love with basketball.
Okay.
Growing up as a kid, and I'm older than you are, so I used to have like Chris Mullin, games for the Warriors in my house when I was a kid. So I grew up 45-minute drive from the Oakland Coliseum, and my dad's a big sports fan, and anytime the Warriors were on, had the games on. And as a kid, I don't know, 8 or 9, made it to my first Warriors game. So I've kind of had a natural connection just based on where I grew up. But I didn't really get into basketball super hardcore until I moved to San Francisco in 2003. I've always watched a million basketball games, but I decided to get they have these mini season ticket passes for the Warriors. And in 2003, you get like $30 a game, and you were in the lower bowl if you bought 12 games. So so I started going to a ton of games, and at that time, the business that I was doing, you could always get vendors would always throw you tickets to Warriors games. They'd have season tickets, and they'd give you, here's the 15. You can see Minnesota twice. You can see Milwaukee twice. They just give you games back then because they had season tickets, and they didn't want to go to, 25 of them. So I ended up seeing, 20 games a season. So it was perfect timing then, when they started getting Baron Davis and
Sure.
Nick Van Exel and
Yeah.
Don Levy, and we had our characters coming through, but really the We Believe, me and my wife started going to even more and more games. So I just started obsessively going to Warriors games when they were making their way up, I guess the first time. I went to all the playoff games, saw the famous Baron Davis dunk in Utah, and so out of that, I've watched every single Warriors game, for the last 20 years or so. Even today, I watch every single game, every second.
Sure.
So, and then just the last thing, my son started playing basketball 5 years ago, and as soon as he started playing, I was never a big player, but as soon as he started playing, he started obsessively playing. He wanted to get up shots every day, and it just came back from practice. So I think through watching him and now his little brother plays, we're a big basketball family.
Well, I have to ask you real quick, what do you think of just the Warriors traditionally, historically, I would say haven't been like a power within the NBA, but within the last decade or so, they've risen to probably be the most popular team in the NBA. So how do you feel about that from just being a longtime Warriors fan to, besides this year, for the most part, the Warriors are the talk of the league. How do you feel about them winning the championships and just about Steph Curry? What's your feelings about this era of Warriors basketball?
Yeah, it's kind of like when your favorite local band goes big, and then you like them, and you're like, oh, and when they go big, it kind of feels like it's everybody's. But it was amazing. We, when they won the championship with Steph in 2015, just the lead up to that was totally insane. Like going to games, it was like a rock concert. And I remember me and my wife, we happened to be, I live in Sweden now. I used to live in San Francisco. I grew up in California, but we happened to be back when the Warriors were in the playoffs, and we bought tickets for Game 5 when they first won their championship against Cleveland. And that was one of the best sports experiences
I bet
of my life. I know my wife's life. So it was great to see, just being the underdogs the whole time. You just are rooting, and the fans there. I mean, even in 2003 or 1983, the fans there are just so into the Warriors. So it's not it was a very, I think, different crowd up to that point. The people had the same seats. If you had your same tickets, it was the same families. And I think the diversity of the fans there was really, something special in Oakland. It's just the ethnicities and the diversity and everything. It was a real special environment. And that changed a bit when, it cost you $200 to get in the lower bowl in a single seat in the back. So I feel like part of that is, I kind of miss part of that. I haven't been to Chase yet, but it definitely changed a lot of the dynamics. And I think pricing some families out of, to take a family of 4 to a game, that's a grand. So it's not, it kind of hurts that it just can't be, you go to the game for fun and you get a ticket, at the door and walk in. But it's great to see. And I think it's just been magical what Steph's been doing, what he continues to do.
Yeah, it's a bummer that I think what you're talking about with just the prices being so expensive. I think it's a league-wide problem that you're kind of pricing out just the fans that want to go to see a game on a night, but you have to plan for it, and you only get to see one game, and who knows if that player's even playing because they're getting rest or low management. So hopefully that's somewhat resolved. When the pandemic is over, we'll have to see. But to your point, you focus on the pro game. So let's talk about the creation of your website, because that's very much just like the average Joe, just that the hobbyist that's playing basketball on the weekend or just some spare time. So how did you create this website? Walk our listeners and viewers through just the creation of Courts of the World.
Yeah. So I've been a part of Courts of the World for 3 years now, so I'm like the last one in. The Courts of the World history goes back to 2007.
Oh, wow.
So we're founded by Klaus is his name. He is an avid street ball player from Germany. And what he used to do is once he got a real job and started doing business trips, he would always take his basketball, and he would just be looking for courts to play. And usually in countries where English was spoken, or if he went to Spain, he could communicate enough to, talk to locals, get pointed in the right direction, at least find some court and some place to play. But the location he went to for a business trip that kind of sparked that something really needed to be done is when he went to China. And no one could speak English, and he was on a business trip with his basketball. And he's just like, there's no one to ask. There's no way to really communicate, to the average taxi driver, like, where can I find a court? So from that trip, he's like, we gotta build something that could be a directory. So his idea, and this was 2007, not so tech savvy, he's like, let's create an Excel spreadsheet that we could post for each city. And he brought it back to one of his best friends, Stefan, that's still with the site and does all the technology behind the scenes. And he's like, well, we can create a website to do this. We don't need to post spreadsheets. So between Klaus, his original idea and being a street baller, and Klaus's brother was a designer, he did the logo, they put up the first website. And the real cool thing about Courts of the World, and even today, is that it's like we didn't go in and type all these courts. It's probably 90% users added.
Oh, wow.
Courts. So it's really, I consider it just more of a platform for like basketball players to, really contribute on where they're playing, what courts are good. And that's one of the visions originally, and something we're really trying to push on. We have like 36,000 courts. If you look at our map and zoom out and look at courts everywhere, and I think that's fine to have that many. But what we're really trying to answer is like, where are the best courts? Like, how can we help a player? Like Justin, you're in New Mexico.
New Mexico, correct?
It must be hot playing outside.
Yeah, scorching, dry heat. Yep.
But yeah, I was just looking in Albuquerque, and I think we have like 40, outdoor courts there. So if you are, especially like if you just moved there and you're like, where can we play? What's the more popular courts? What have been rated high? Where can I find pickup games? Like that's what we're really trying to help the average player find, especially if they're looking to interact with other players. Or lots of times I get messages like, I have one night in London, like, give me a court, So that's what we're really trying to help the visitors to the website find, is kind of wherever they're going or wherever they're at, where can they find a place to play. And the reason why we focus on outdoor first is because outdoor's free. You don't need a key. Most of the time you don't have to pay money. So that's really where the explosion of the court additions have been.
What makes a great court to play on? I read one of your articles on your website. It was covering just the Brooklyn courts. They're just going over, a court shouldn't have cracks in it, shouldn't have weeds sprouting out of it, should be kind of full of other kind of skill levels. I guess what makes a great court, is it in terms of having elite players, a wide range of players spanning different ages, just how popular it is, or in terms of, because I know it's hard, like depending on which court you go to, I think I saw a breakdown like the Los Angeles courts, and, those are infamous for like really talented players. So,
Yep.
Like myself, I'm pretty mediocre at best, but want to get some time in. I mean, I'll probably never get a chance to play in one of those games due to my skill levels. So I guess what makes the best court for just from a novice to somebody who was like a semi-pro or just like a YMCA gym warrior type of speed?
Yeah, and it's fine. So we have on our site, we have a rating. You can give a 1 to 5 rating, and so far they've just been stars. There, so you can kind of pick. Like, oh, it's a great court. I give it a 5-star. And me and my oldest son, he's 14, and and he helped really push me in this direction. I wanted to be involved in a website like this. We've found courts like in 5 countries, and when we went to the Philippines, every morning we'd go out and find the local court. And every time it's like, how do you rate this court, Dad? 1 to 5, and I'd be like, well, this is a 4. It's a perfect court. It's flat. It's got the 3-point lines. It's got NBA height. It's got nets. It's a perfect court. It's like, well, why don't you give this a 5? And I'm like, well, you need people around to make it a 5. If you go to the perfect court every day, but you can never play or meet anyone, from the neighborhood, and there's never any runs there. It kind of takes everything to make it a perfect court. And I think having people to play with and have that in an environment, where there's games going on, in addition to all the obvious of having the perfect court and the rim that's straight and NBA height and not tilted and nets. I think it's really people. And that's what most of the time when someone's spending, they have a layover in Atlanta and want to find a court. They want to play with locals. They want to run a game. So I think that's, the rating system, I think towards the higher end just requires you to get in a game at your level and meet new people. So that's how I push it on the higher scale. So I'm really picky about, for me, giving a 5-star. They just built, and I just had this debate, really, they just built this really perfect court in northern Stockholm, and it has like the plastic tile.
Oh,
so
wow.
It's even like, it's perfect, and the rims are perfect. And I give bonus points like if it's near like a store that you could just go to and get drinks. It's like cool. Easy to locate. But then it's like no one ever plays there, so it's like,
oh man,
that's kind of the missing element. I'd still score that very high. Um, I I spoke to the head of 3-on-3 in Estonia uh, recently, and he has developed a 1 to 5 rating. And his number one rating that I was just talking to him about, and we're debating whether we should do this, was like, could you run like an official outdoor game, like a 5-on-5 game? So that means like even if though they have 3 pointers, it's a real 3 point line, and then there's room past there to shoot. Um, so his interpretation was a little bit different what he wanted to do, but I think we're looking at some other rating like that that really rates the court kind of independent of the experience. Yeah, if you want to do an official 3-on-3 pickup game, you could run it there because yeah, the lines are right and the court, the hoop height is perfect, and some of the extras like the backboard is see-through.
Sure.
You know, it kind of has like that level to it that makes it work.
What has been the coolest court that you visited? I had the chance to go to Mexico back in college, and just seeing a basketball court in the local community. Was playing outside with just like the mountains, was just like create this ambiance that was so different than just playing basketball in America. We had a former college player that was on the trip with us, J.R. Giddens, who played in the NBA and played internationally and played for the University of New Mexico. And it's just like a unique experience, just playing just not on American soil. So what was kind of the coolest court you visited? You mentioned some of them earlier. Are there any characteristics that you see internationally that you just don't see in America when you step on an international court?
Yeah, gosh, best court. That's when we were in Wellington, New Zealand. We had the best pickup game on the beach with a local. So part of it's kind of the experience. Gosh, best court. That's it's really when I think to the best courts. It's really come down to the pickup games and the people that we've met there. But there was a court that I hadn't ever been to. Even though as a kid, I always went to this beach in California, in Stinson Beach, and they had this little court in the back next to an ice cream shop, and we started playing with my son. And then a college player showed up with his friend that didn't play basketball that well, and we ran a 2-on-2. And then my kids were there, and they met like another 8 and 10-year-old, and they ran twos against each other. That was a great court just in the local park there. So those might be my 2 best pickup game at courts. There's some nice ones in Stockholm that we play at. And one's just downtown at a school, but there's lots of, it's kind of in the middle of a center. So it just gets lots of traffic from like people out of town there. And every time we go there, we meet someone from America, we meet someone from Spain shooting. So it's usually these pickup, court environments. I think in Europe, lots of times you see these really heavy duty basketball rims that you don't see in the US, I guess they do double rims in the U.S., but they kind of build them so that they make them through the winter.
Oh, wow.
So really like thick, rims that aren't friendly for shooting. And they have a lot of weird like backboards that are just metal. Maybe they have some of those in New York, I've seen.
I don't know. Yeah.
But they got kind of weird stuff that I think schools put up maybe to fit their budgets. This hoop's not coming down in the next 20 years. It's built to last.
What do you think of private basketball courts? I don't know if you've seen them, but they're sponsored by like Adidas or Nike. Usually you see them in the summer where it's like an undisclosed facility, and it's just like, I think I've seen them pop up just on social media where usually you'll see, LeBron, or it's usually a lot of the guys under the same representation playing at these courts that are like state of the art. is that kind of like too fancy in terms of it's kind of for just people that have privilege that's able to play at those courts, or what do you think of that? Because it just they look cool in terms of like the technology. At the same time, it's kind of missing that soul. Something like a Rucker Park or lots of other legendary courts that still NBA players do participate in. I don't think exclusively they play at these private courts, but I just see them popping up these private facilities that public just the average person's not able to find or go to.
Yeah, and those aren't usually things we try to map or our players map. But yeah, usually we focus on public. The one thing we are going to move into, and we're going to start focusing on it in a couple weeks, is more indoor courts. Like I said, we have like 36,000 or so courts, and I think like 35,000 of them are outdoor and public for the most part. So it's something we're going to start asking our community to add more. And I think there's something, and sometimes it's almost better like not to know that there's like this perfect court next to you that you can't get into.
Sure.
So that's not really an area where we focus. And there's some gyms where I'm from near San Francisco that, are kind of lock key, that you need to have a private coach to go in there and get shots up. So I think we're looking to get those on our map and just note them as being private and linking to their website. So if you want to find out some more information about them, you can.
And can you go over just like professional players being involved in creating basketball courts in their communities? I think you recently did an article on Heat guard Gordon Dragic's from Slovenia, I believe, and him just creating courts within his community. And also, not only these are not just average courts. I mean, they have a lot of artistic merit to them. They have a personality of their own. So can you just describe the relationship of kind of these professional players? Because I think a lot of fans just think they play at the best schools or just have the best training, but basketball is a game where you can just go really anywhere and just find a park and play. So can you just kind of describe just kind of that relationship with professional players just all over the world, and now we've seen a trend with them creating their own courts within their own communities?
Yeah, and I think it's a great thing. I think the one thing, and I listened to your podcast with the AAU coach also.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was really interesting, talking about like the business of basketball, and my son's competitive, and you hear about like the AAU path, and I think, and all that's indoor. And I think that, maybe one of the themes, and I've read some articles about it, is just outdoor courts and public courts are getting less use. So I think a lot of these initiatives, and like Manu just put up one, and a lot of pro players are trying to build their own courts, or at least lending their image to courts to get people to play at. And a lot of these, there's a lot of organizations that are doing good things locally on doing more of the murals on courts to make them more favorable and more interesting to play on. And I'm hoping to work with more of these organizations to get more attention to them. And I think the one thing that can help, and I can almost see from like nicer courts here in my community, it's like nicer courts or courts with some flair to them with upgrades, like kids use them more. So I think kind of the background, I think that these organizations need to kind of come with to help them is not just like the feel good story, but having some like quantitative metrics that they could go back to their local community and saying, we're getting 20% more kids to play on these courts because of these upgrades, like the community benefits of that and the financial benefits of having kids that are more active compared to not as active are, I think are really important. So I think these measures that players are making, and they're not focused on getting like the Goron one that you're referencing, his mission was not to like get the next pro player from his local community. He just wanted families to be active and outside in a positive environment. So I think it's a nice change that's going on, and kind of a way to I think kind of renew interest in public courts. And one of the other studies that I saw, and it seems to be a trend, is in new parks, instead of building like one full length court, is kind of building two half courts that aren't facing each other for 3-on-3 games, so that like a group of 8 can't just dominate a whole court and the family can't shoot on the other one, or another kid at a different level. So maybe that's a trend that I see happening more. I haven't seen any studies to back it up, but I think that's something that could help increase participation. And maybe the 3-on-3 push that's happening right now, I think, can also help outdoor court play.
Can you go over when the participation of basketball outside in regards to the pandemic? I know just walking around courts here in New Mexico, seeing them taped off, like the rim, just not being able to play was just horrifying, to be completely honest. And at your site, you mentioned to me that the Denmark Federation promoted your website and trying to get people to play basketball legally outside. So I guess from an international perspective, can you just go over just when COVID just first hit, from just a kind of basketball perspective, just not seeing people playing on the court? I mean, and not possibly pretty much not getting those emails of, hey, I'm in this country, where can I, find a court? That not happening because of COVID. What was that like for you?
Yeah, and we're still going through it and trying to figure out, and it's really challenging to keep up with. But yeah, the one thing you mentioned in Denmark, which is just south of us, they had a really, really strict lockdown period where, and just like Germany, you couldn't play outside at a basketball court by yourself. Like,
wow.
I don't know how much that makes sense, but I know even in California, I can talk a little bit about the different things that I've seen with players communicating with me. But so what happened in Denmark is they just eased restrictions a couple of weeks ago, allowing groups to be able to practice outdoor together. I don't know if it's less than 12. They had some limit there, but the nice thing is they used our website. The Danish Basketball Federation said, if you're looking to find an outdoor court, you can use this as a directory to find something close to you. So it's nice to get that sort of, to able to help a local community to show them what they can do. But for the most part in Sweden, for older kids, even in Denmark, like they just can't, you can't practice inside. So, and I can just talk from Sweden that unless it's a pro basketball league and you're over, if it's not pro and you're over 17, like the seasons have just been canceled. I mean, this year. So it's still going on. My son was this weekend was supposed to be in the second round of the Swedish championships for under 15, and they just canceled the whole thing this year. So, another thing I can talk about just with the pandemic, one of our avid users, his name's Alan, and he travels a lot for business. And before he goes to cities, he's like, give me courts in Los Angeles and San Diego. He was down there a month ago, and we gave him a list of, here's the top 20. We wrote articles on him, and 3/4 of them didn't have a rim.
Oh, wow.
So I think anything owned by the city, at least in California, they just take down the rims. And he was just in Las Vegas this weekend. I go, it's got to be more lax there because you can go in casinos and you can gamble and you can go to events in limited numbers, and there's just no rims anywhere. So the top 5 courts rated there. Even at on the UNLV campus, we thought there were some signs that were there, but everything, there was no place to play outside.
Jeez, wow. Do you think that's going to hurt the development of the game of basketball from just a, I guess, personal level, just as a hobbyist, into professionals too? I mean, I think, with the vaccines being distributed, hopefully the light's at the end of the tunnel and things will get back to normal pretty soon. Well, I mean, let's just say somehow everything's back to normal by like the fall. I mean, that's a huge chunk of time that's been missed in terms of development on so many different levels. I guess what are the consequences from a basketball perspective do you see happening because of COVID?
Yeah, I, I think it's going to be a generation here of some percentage of kids, of less kids playing basketball. So I mean, I just speak on a personal level that I mean I know on these kids teams now. I mean, there's less kids practicing now than there were a year and a half ago. Because of the pandemic, because of the school situation. And maybe paranoia of parents. There's just less kids playing basketball, and I don't expect all of them to jump back, a year later after not, participating. So I'm sure on a global level and all sports, there's going to be an impact, that's going to last. And I just think it's part of just maybe a broader subject of even kids participating fully in school. I mean, I think all this goes together that it's just changed everything, and it's going to have long-term effects. And it's not going to kill the sport of basketball, but I just think on a global level, there's less kids playing sports because of this.
And can you go over your site's partnership with FIBA? That's a really a huge partnership. Can it describe that? Because my impression was FIBA was more this international competition. So how's that partnership going to manifest itself? And do you see how big do you see that partnership getting in the coming years?
Yeah, I think it's interesting being in an American, we're not so much in the FIBA world. I mean, I think like when it comes to the Olympics, you hear FIBA, you understand it, but and maybe that's just the structure in the U.S., but globally, or maybe it's like everywhere outside of the U.S., like FIBA, I mean, is really the driver in all basketball structures. Like the kids team that are part of the local federation, it's part of the Swedish federation, are part of FIBA. So it's really like the structure that builds all of basketball. And maybe it's different here also because most of the sports, unlike the US where sports are always tied to the school, right? You're playing for your high school, you're playing for your junior high or college. In most of Europe, sports are detached from schools. So there's local clubs you play with. You grow up within those clubs. You could be on the pro team of that club.
Oh, wow.
And for basketball, they're all FIBA clubs. So they're all, playing with FIBA-approved basketballs. And the bigger tournaments that you play, they're on FIBA-approved, flooring with FIBA-approved scoreboards. And at the highest level, if you ever go watch like I go watch like Sweden or play some other visiting country on an international level, it's always on a facility that has all FIBA approved, backboards, sound systems. So the division that we're working with within FIBA is the Equipment and Venues Center.
Okay.
So it's their responsibility to ensure the quality of all the manufacturers that are used in games. Or if you look at a ball, it says FIBA approved on it. They're the group in the center that actually tests those, with the ultimate level of detail and quality. So we're going to work with them. They had an arena finder where you could find like all the different arenas that had FIBA play, most of them international, big venues that you couldn't just drop by and hoop at. So we're partnering with them, and we'll be changing the website. So you're getting breaking news here, Justin. But they did announce this at the Global Partners meeting. So as more manufacturers learned about our website, so FIBA is gonna link to us to say like find a court, and actually part of the reason why they're doing it is they want to get kids out to play basketball, and we have the biggest database of concentrated courts. So they're going to just help promote this to help promote basketball. And then the one thing that we're also going to do, since their interest, is helping to grow basketball, we're going to also show all the courts where they have approved equipment in. So you can kind of see, in lots of these courts are more, private. Like you can't just go to Chase Center and say, let me get some shots up here.
Sure.
So we're going to work together to really try to, fill out our courts globally and go both indoors and outdoor. And I think just the cooperation we have with them is a good fit because, their social media presence, the amount of visitors they have going to their website to look for things like courts or coaches or games, or you can get your 3-on-3 player score there. At least they'll get exposure to our website and linking there. So some of the new features, and I sent you a sneak peek. In the future, you can say, I only want to see indoor courts, or I only want to see outdoor courts, or, these Fiba courts. Can you tell me what these are about? And we're going to add some different things that we've always wanted to do. Like before, a couple of years ago, we didn't have like how many hoops there were. So a couple of years ago, we added how many hoops there are. And now we're adding how many courts there are, since now there isn't really that direct relation to 2 hoops equals 1 court. You can have 2 courts with 2 hoops. So we're going to add that. And I've had a gentleman really passionate about access for wheelchairs to outdoor
Cool.
courts. So that's going to be a new field with its own icon. So if you wanted to just filter, like in my area, where could I play? If I was in a wheelchair and a baller. So we're going to really kind of add a bunch of features to the court page, which we've already defined for each of the types. So I think this is really a part of us, taking off and going to a different, potentially the platform to do some real different things, which, we hear all the ideas on what we can do, and we're going to kind of strategically pick what's our next step here. But I think we'll have a really good growing base here.
Well, that's really fascinating. I think Courts of the World is a fantastic site for any basketball fan just looking to find a game wherever they're living. I think a lot of people are just traveling more once, pre-COVID, and they're enthusiastic about the game of basketball and just looking for a court to play on. And I think this website is really incredible for finding that. So thanks for your really taking part in creating this. And it's something that I think every basketball fan should seek out. It's really just awesome. And not only that, just the blogs and information, just in terms of the backstory of all these different courts around the world. It's truly fascinating to read. Ryan, can you please go over just where listeners and viewers can find yourself on social media? And then when do you think like the redesign of the website is going to take place, and anything that our listeners and viewers should be on the lookout for the rest of this year for Courts of the World?
Okay. And Justin, first, tell me the best local court in your area.
Good question. Boy, I would say indoor, definitely Johnson Center. I went to the University of New Mexico, and I just have a soft spot for that court, just because you get a lot of former college players and just students, and there's like a mishmash of people. So that one's a personal favorite, I would say. And I don't know the location of this. It's near downtown Albuquerque. It looks like a cage, basically. I like it already. It's on 2nd Street or 3rd Street. That court's really cool. And I think that's kind of encompasses Albuquerque. It's kind of like a rougher town, kind of a rougher edge to it. So I think in terms of the outdoor court, I don't know the name of it, but played on it a couple of times, and it kind of has the soul of Albuquerque. If I were just to name one of them.
Okay. Yeah, it was funny. Now hearing you talk, it made me think like, well, what's the courts that I found the best experience? And sometimes you don't even know the name of these courts because they're just kind of like, the court next to the park and the sandwich, where it is. And I think that's why our, to be transparent about our website, like our map, like 80% of our traffic's to our map, because you want to go plug in where you're at and what's around you. You may not know the name, and lots of the courts on Courts of the World are just cool basketball court or basketball court. There's no name, but we can plot it on a map, and you can see 5 stars. Okay, you're gonna have to send me a picture. I'm gonna see how we rated this one on 2nd or 3rd Street. So I'll look at our map. So our hub is courtsoftheworld.com, and I'd urge anyone to become a player. You can sign up there and have your own account. It's free, and some of the cool things that will happen when you actually log in, you can track all the courts that you've added yourselves, or all the pictures that you've uploaded. You can see them on your page. And a new feature that we came out with maybe 6 months ago is check-ins.
Oh, cool.
So if you want to just start saying, I've been to all these 50 courts in these countries, you can even backdate your check-ins. So we played in the Philippines and New Zealand with my son. I kind of went back and I documented, where we were at, and you can put in the dates in the past. So on your page, you can see where you've checked in, all your photos, and then might not be in a couple weeks with our relaunch, but pretty soon you can see all of them on your own map. So it's really cool. And logging in or creating an account will help you. That'll enable you to rate courts and really get more involved with the website. If anyone wants to connect with me personally, may just look me up, Ryan. I'm sure if you do a combination of Ryan Courts of the World on LinkedIn, you could connect if you're interested in sponsoring the website, or connecting on a business level, or want to help write articles or whatever. We're always open to that. On Instagram, someone took Courts of the World, and I've been trying to get it for about a year. So we're basketball.courts of the world.
Gotcha.
On Instagram. So those are the two. You can find us on Facebook, so you can connect there. And even on our website, I think there's an instant message button there if you ever want to hit us up. Either me, Klaus, or Stefan will get back to you. I want to thank you for your time, Justin. And I didn't know about your website until you reached out to me, and I think I just did the Kareth Burke episode, being a Warriors fan. So I think you guys are doing great work, and I like the guest you're bringing on and the variety of topics. So I've enjoyed kind of digging in, and I'll continue to be a fan. So it's really been enjoyable.
Appreciate it, Ryan. Thank you very much for the time. I know it's late out there in Sweden. Thanks for taking some time just out of your day just to talk with us about your website. And we're looking forward to chatting with you fairly soon.
Cool, Justin. Take it easy.
Thanks, Ryan.